everybody. Welcome to another college conversation. I'm Harlan Cohen, and I'm your host. Today, we are talking with four graduates from Concord University. They are no longer in college, right? I mean, they're always learning, but you're all professionals, right? Wouldn't you say for the most, or Karina, you're still in school, right? Yeah, you're still there, but we're all learning and continuing to learn, and it's exciting because everybody here has been to Concord. You've lived life in Concord. You know West Virginia. Ricky, you're not in West Virginia today, right?
No, I'm not. I'm in Seoul, South Korea.
It's funny because I'm looking here. I see you here, and it looks like you could be in West Virginia. You got the PS5 over your shoulder. Right? I noticed that's cool. I like a PS5.
Well, it
Right.
was hard to get, actually.
Right. Like you
They
got
were
it.
all
Right.
sold out. Yeah.
How'd you get that in South Korea? Someone send it to you? Did you get it at like Best Buy?
Oh, so in South Korea, most males go to the military, correct? Well, every male, actually.
Yeah.
So my husband actually bought it off of a guy who had to go to the military and didn't have time to play it. So,
Oh, nice. So that was the connection. Okay.
yes.
Perfect. Okay. So we have such a diverse group of graduate, I want to say students, but you're all so interesting and you've come so far. And what I want to do today is to really help everybody to see that, the only difference between you and students, whether they're in college or in high school or even middle school, is just time, right? Like, I mean, that's the thing, because we've got a couple doctors here. Dr. Lane, I'm very curious. Uh, when you were a little boy, did
So,
you think that you would be Dr. Brad Lane?
no, not at all. Not at all.
I mean, I think that's what's pretty remarkable. Dr. Yost, when you were growing up, was that a dream of yours to be a doctor?
No, as a little boy, I always wanted to be a train engineer. So this is very different from that.
Oh, well, that's fascinating. So did you pursue train engineering at any point?
No, I was just obsessed with Thomas the Tank Engine when I was a kid.
You never realized that dream. That's a good question for me to ask you, and I'd love to ask all of you. I would love to know what your dream is, and you can share as many details you want. Dream life, dream job, dream. Maybe you're living it, but I'd love to know your dream. And Dr. Yost, since we were talking, let's just keep going there. I know you wanted to be a train engineer. That was one of your dreams. But what's your current dream? Do you have a dream?
um, you know, to be honest, I think that I'm there. I finally didn't live everything I've strived for the past 11 years. I'm fresh out of residency. I just finished residency in 2019. So I feel like I'm finally, as everybody says, living the dream. Got a great job. I'm back in my hometown, and it's what I always wanted to do.
That's remarkable, and I want to learn how somebody actually gets to live the dream and to understand the steps that you've taken to get there. Karina, I know you're coming to us from North Carolina. You're on the Duke campus. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So tell me, Karina, what is your dream?
So I think my dream, I have not reached it yet. I am slowly reaching it, is to just push science forward and to get others excited about science.
Is there something that you're working on? Is there something you're trying to cure, create, solve specifically?
Yes, there is something I'm trying to solve. So I work with yeast, so like baking yeast.
Right, it rises.
And,
Okay.
yes. And I essentially study very biological processes that happen in yeast that can happen in other systems as well. And so it's a very good model organism for studying a lot of biological processes. And I've actually already published a paper in my second year, which is very unusual. And so that's what I mean by I think I'm slowly getting to the point where I'm reaching the dream.
Oh, that's phenomenal. Will you share a link? Will you give us access to that? Is that something that we can?
Yes, it is public access now. Yes.
Cool. What's, since we have you, like, what's the gist of it?
Yeah, so yeast exist in two mating types, and so they can kind of like, you can think of them as sexes. And they essentially will mate with the opposite mating type. And so one of the questions, the main question I address is, why don't they mate with multiple yeast? Why do they only mate with one other when they theoretically should be able to do that with multiple? And that just comes down to cell polarity. And that's a really big process in a lot of systems, including neutrophils. So your immune cells, they have to be able to form one polarity front to be able to chase the bacterium. Is also important in neurons, to be able to form, the right in a polarity site in the correct direction so that it can grow.
Interesting. So then the application of this research and information, what can that help or improve?
Yeah, so I think one, it gives us a better idea of what's going on in our system, but also, it can be translatable and transferable to other systems as well, just knowing what the process of cell polarity is doing.
That's so interesting. I don't know if you are all into yeast, and I like the mating part. I think it's interesting that yeast is very loyal. Like, yeast is monogamous. Like, yeast doesn't mess around. It's like,
that's actually part of the title in the paper.
Is it really?
Yeah.
The monogamy of yeast. So if anybody likes a secure relationship, yeast, someone who represents many of the qualities of yeast, would be something to look for in a partner for all our single listeners out there. So that's wonderful and exciting. And I know you're pursuing your PhD. So it's been a long journey from your days at Concord, and also from Beckley, West Virginia, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Did you ever think you'd be working towards your PhD at Duke when you were at Woodrow Wilson High School? Is that right?
Yeah, not in a million years. Not in a million years.
That's the best. That's the best. I'm so excited to learn how you got there. Ricky, so I'm curious to know about you. You're in South Korea. You got out of Glen Daniel, right? You left.
Yeah.
You went far away. Why are you so far away, Ricky?
If I'm going to be completely honest, it's because I didn't want to stay in West Virginia.
Oh, no, I'm not supposed to say that.
I'm so sorry.
I'm just kidding. We could say whatever we want. People leave West Virginia and they come back. Like, I've talked to so many people, and they leave, and then they're like, you know what? There's something about it, right? And I know we've got a couple people here who are living their dream in West Virginia. So you're certainly allowed to leave and experience life, right? So,
right.
No problem with that. So you wanted to leave, and why go so far away?
Well, I had thought previously about teaching English in a foreign country for a long time, but I never thought it would be possible. And then in college, I met a lot of people from all around the world, a lot of international students. And I was really drawn to some of my friends from Korea, and they're just so kind and welcoming. And I was like, okay, well, what about Korea? Why don't I try to teach English in Korea? So I contacted a recruiter, and me and my husband applied for a lot of teaching couple positions together. And I didn't think we would actually get a job so quickly. It kind of just happened in a snap. And then 3 months later, they're like, oh, would you want to have an interview? And we didn't get the first job, but the second job we did. And
wow.
Yeah.
That's remarkable. Is it scary being so far from home?
No, actually, I love it. It's freeing. it's freeing being in a place where like everything is new and you're learning new things, new culture. And I've been adapting, and I don't know the language, so it is very difficult sometimes, even to just go to the doctor.
Yeah, I would imagine. Uh, when it comes to your job, explain to us what you're doing.
Okay, so I teach English as a second language to kindergarten and elementary school children. Um, Mostly kindergarten, so I'm with them from like 9 until like 3 p.m. every day. And it's quite the ride. That's what I can say.
Right. And you don't speak their first language.
Right. So I know basic Korean, and that's pretty much it. So if I can't get them to listen, I'll use a little bit.
What's the word you say the most in Korean?
Hajima, that means stop.
I was gonna say that. I was gonna say I bet it's stop. Right.
Stop.
What a wild journey. And I know that you're gonna have to cut out a little bit early today because you gotta go to school. You gotta teach. You gotta help these kids. That's
Yeah, I know.
exciting. Yeah. I have a couple more questions for you, and I want to get to Dr. Lane, but I want to know, Ricky, what's your dream?
I really like ESL right now. And currently, me and my husband, we've accepted a job with international school in Korea. And this job is much higher, as it's kind of like a public school government job, except it's private. So we get vacation days and we get a lot of benefits. So with a lot of experience from that job, I know my life can go in a lot of ways, but I think one dream I would like to achieve eventually would be working at an university with an international program, and maybe be an ESL teacher there.
So you want to stay abroad. You really like that life.
I do. I might come back to America, but I'm not quite sure.
Right. You got some time. That's fantastic. That's so interesting. I want to make sure we talk about the Bonner Scholarship and all the programs at some point before we leave. And I know, just for anybody who's watching this, you graduated with a bachelor's degree in social work, and then you went on to get a master's degree, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And then when it comes to, and this is a personal question, I imagine people would be curious to know, does it pay well to do what you're doing in Korea? Is it equal to what you would get paid in the States? Is it more? Can you kind of give us an idea?
The current job I'm at is kind of like an academy. We call it a hagwon. And so this isn't a government job. So it's kind of, they pay you less, but they provide housing, which is really great. So I don't have to pay rent at all, just utilities. So we're already saving a lot of money anyways. So I can definitely pay off my loans quicker.
So Dr. Lane, very curious to know more about you. But I mean, you do a lot. You keep doing a lot. I want to know what your dream is. You're not just out of your residency. Yeah, it's been a little bit of time since then.
Yeah, I'm the old man of the group here, it seems. So.
Barely, right. But what's your dream? Are you living it?
The thing about my dreams, I feel, is it changes a lot. I grew up in a small town close to Athens, about an hour away, Mullins, in Wyoming County. Part of that was that I just wanted to go to college. I was the first in my family to go to college. So that was the dream at the time. And then I thought, well, obviously want to graduate, get a job. It was a triple major and whatnot. And then I think I want to go on. I want to do more. So I want to go to optometry school. Well, that was the dream at the time. So it's changing. But, I think now, I've been ridiculously blessed with awesome people around me, and then a great family. So now it's time for me to really give back. And I think that's probably my dream, is to be able to really help others right now.
when I was looking at your information, it was really interesting because you're a graduate of Concord, and then you went on to optometry school.
Correct.
Tell me, I want to understand, and Dr. Yost, you can help me with this as well. If there are students out there, young people who want to be doctors, and they say, like, that's so far away. And I love, Dr. Lane, how you brought that home, that the first thing was just the dream of just going to college. You know, you get started with just that dream, and then it became the next dream. Can you help us to understand what happens when you graduate? How do you become a doctor? You know, how many years does it take? And does that go pretty fast?
You find your interest, right? I mean, there's tons of different disciplines when becoming a doctor. And I found what I wanted. I've shadowed a lot of doctors in a lot of different medical settings, and I found optometry, and I just fell in love with it. Actually, I was in biology lounge. If you all remember that at all, I don't know if they still had it when everyone was there. Yeah, okay. And I asked one of the professors that was walking through, "Hey, where's the best optometry school?" You know, and she said, "Well, Philadelphia is awesome. The school in Philadelphia." I'm like, "Okay." And that was back in the day, really, before you went on the internet and downloaded all the information or looked at information. You know, so they used to have a bulletin board that had all these posters with tear off postcards. So I tore off a postcard, filled it out, and just had them mail me info. You know, to be honest, Concord really prepared me extremely well for a professional program. I would say that the workload in optometry school exceeds what I had in undergrad, the workload in undergrad. But I don't think the material, was any more difficult. There was a lot of it, 8 hours a day in the classroom. But, the tests that I took at Concord and my biology professors really prepared me.
Then after that, you're an optometrist?
Correct. Yeah.
Oh, so it was 6 years at Concord, and was that 6 years to get your bachelor degree?
Well, because I was a triple major. Yeah, I was a psychology first. I should have been 4 years, but I hung around a little longer.
Okay, which is fine. People can hang. That's okay, right? There's no rush.
Right.
So then from there you go to med school, and it's only 4 years to then complete this next level.
Right, optometry school. Right. Yeah.
Right. After you graduate, then to get that job, is it easy to get a job? Is it difficult to get a job?
Well, luckily, I had connections back home, back here. I'm in Princeton now, outside of Athens. And I had shadowed a fella, an optometrist, and he was looking for a business partner. So it worked out great. So I moved back 14 years ago. We have 2 offices, and we now employ 5 doctors and 25 staff members. And it was 2 doctors and 3 staff members 14 years ago. So it's worked out really well. The job market for optometrists right now is looking pretty good.
Yeah, my eyes used to be my best thing. I joked, well, I don't joke, my kids joke. I would talk about how my best quality is my vision. Right. And clearly something went wrong.
Something's wrong, yeah.
As I'm not a baby boomer, but things got blurry. And glasses are a miracle. I mean, it's like, I almost cried. I mean, my vision's barely bad, but it's like when you put that thing in front of our face, sure, and you click, it's like, it's magic.
I think that's what I liked about it so much when I shadowed was, the guy who's now Dr. Hansen, who's now my business partner, who's from Athens originally. When I shadowed him, the first day I shadowed, he saw a patient, like a 12, 13-year-old boy, really shy, fitting with contacts, and the kid just blossomed. I mean, he was just so excited, and, just the smile on his face. I was like, that was awesome, And then there was a lady who came in that actually had a brain tumor and didn't realize it. She was there for a routine exam, and he was able to discover that, he ordered an imaging study and found out she had a brain tumor, and he was able to obviously, send that to her PCP and go that route, and they handled it. And then what was the other? Oh, a person who had diabetes and didn't know it. And it was awesome that, he wasn't really prescribing the medication. He was, You're not afraid that you're going to get a needle or a shot, an injection at the eye doctor, So we get to be the good guys in a lot of ways. So that's what really drew me to that. It's people like Dr. Yost who do the injections that people are afraid of.
We're going to get to Dr. Payne in a moment.
There you go.
I want to just go back, Dr. Lane, to the days when you're Brad, you're a little boy growing up in a coal mining town. Sounds like the beginning of a movie.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah. Can you take us back there? I want to understand your childhood, what the dynamics were in your life and some of those challenges, because certainly they're in your rearview mirror, but there's so many people who are living those challenges now.
So I grew up about 7-8 miles out of town, I guess you could say, on a dirt road on top of a mountain, honestly. Nearest neighbor was my grandparents. They were a mile away. Like I said, my dad was a coal miner, and we had one vehicle, one car. And of course he took that, one truck, but of course he took that to work. So in my younger days, when I was 4 or 5, 6, 7 years old, thereabouts, the summer was a lot of swinging on grapevines, building clubhouses in the woods with buddies, and having a younger sister. So I have a sister who's 4 years younger. And we didn't go anywhere. It was a lot of just enjoying what we had. We didn't know we were poor. we thought everyone was like that. And honestly, in our community, everyone was like that. They lived like that. As time went on and we got older, my mom did get a job, and she was a 911 operator, which she loved. She loved that job, and it was so much fun for her. It's probably because she got out of the house without 2 kids. Honestly, both my parents, they graduated high school, but no one in my family had went to college. And I remember when I was 13, my dad had an accident in the coal mines. Nothing horrible, but he set me down and he said, "Listen, you're not going in the mines." And I said, "Well, I don't want to go in the mines. Don't worry." He said, "Well, you better study a lot because you have to go on an academic scholarship." He said, "Let's be honest, you're not going to go on an athletic scholarship, okay? So it's going to have to be academics." So I studied, did well on, ACT, did well through high school, and, had a job and saved money myself for college. And I've always known Concord to be a really academically strong institution. It's tough, it's tough to get in and it's tough to get out. It's tough to actually graduate from Concord, but it's close to home, and it was a challenge. I'm like, I can do this. And Concord gave me a chance, and I'll forever be grateful.
So you got a scholarship?
I got free tuition. I think they called it the undergraduate scholarship, or I can't remember what they called it. So, but that was for the 4 years. Those extra 2 years were just on me.
Right. You gladly paid that. Is there anybody else here who was able to get some scholarships or financial aid? Yeah, Karina, you were, and Ricky and Dr. Yost as well. I think that's interesting, the conversation you had with your dad. I mean, the whole thing is really wonderful. And one thing I just want to emphasize, and we've talked about this in other conversations, is I think even when you went to school, as opposed to how it is now, I think that, academic success is important for financial aid. But what I see is so many students who don't have that academic success, who come from low income families, are able to get a lot of money. And I think that's kind of, of course you got to study, but the idea of accessibility, I think that's really changed a little bit over the years. I think, Ricky, are you the most recent grad here?
Maybe. So I got my graduate degree in 2019.
Okay. How did you pay for your undergraduate degree?
I was also a part of the Bonner Scholar program, and the extra amount I took out loans.
Okay.
And I was also a resident assistant living on campus for 3 years.
So that saved a ton of dough, right?
Yeah, that helped a lot.
How did you get to be a Bonner Scholar?
When I was in high school, they had talked about the Bonner Scholar program. Somebody came to our school, set up a booth, and was talking about how if you came and did volunteer work with this program that you could get so much scholarship money like per semester. And I'd already done volunteer work with a club in high school.
Uh-huh.
So it just always felt like it was really personable to me to just give back to my community. I decided to apply for it. I didn't think I would get it because it can be a hard program to get into. So I got it after I graduated. They also gave me like a few $1,000s to pay towards my loans, which was great.
Wow. That's fantastic. That's great to know. And for anybody who sees money as the thing that limits their ability to go to school, I always like to reinforce the idea that the less you have, the more people are willing to help. And it seems there's more government programs, more grants, more programs within schools to help. Karina, you're a first generation student as well, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your path, how you were able to get to, how you were able to get to Concord, but just I want to understand your journey, your childhood, those experiences.
I grew up in Beckley, West Virginia. I was part of a single parent household, so just my mom. And we lived very much hand to mouth. We'd go through school and I did well. I really enjoyed learning. I really enjoyed school. And she was always proud of me, 100%. But my mom had not even finished high school, never even got her GED. And my dad, who is now 88, he, at the time, back in the 40s, he dropped out of school in the 6th grade. So neither one of my parents had even a high school degree. By the time I got to high school, I was really good at, biology and chemistry, and I took all the AP courses. And, at the time, I actually thought, oh, I would like to be a doctor. And so I actually applied to Concord because I still wanted to stay close to home, but also I really liked I was always told it was a very small school. And, I wanted that. I didn't want to be like a face in the sea of, people. By the time I got to Concord, I kind of still thought I wanted to be a doctor. And then just partway through, I just realized I started doing, research, and I just really fell in love with that. And then I ended up doing an internship at Duke while I was still an undergrad. And that really solidified that decision. Yeah, so by the time I did that, I decided, yes, I wanted to go to grad school, and I applied to 12 because I didn't think that I would get into any of them because they were top tier institutions like Yale and Cornell and Vanderbilt and Duke. And I got into 9 of the 12, including Yale and Cornell and Vanderbilt and Duke and University of Michigan, and a few others. So yeah, it worked out.
That's remarkable. What has been your most challenging self-limiting belief during this journey, especially going back to those teen years before you had the validation?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I've been told a lot of times that, I have my biggest hurdle because I have a lot of self-doubt and a lot of self-criticism in the sense that, I just kind of think like maybe there's been some mistake, like maybe I don't deserve to be here. Maybe I don't deserve to be as far as I am. So just like a lot of self-doubt and a lot of internal self-criticism. I think that's been the biggest hurdle, even now. Even when you get to a certain point, there's still some amount of imposter syndrome, if you will, to think that, oh, maybe, or even just always reevaluating things like, oh, I could have done this better. I could have done that better. Perfectionism. So that's probably the biggest hurdle is the perfectionism.
Yeah. Why do you still struggle with that?
My personality. I've always tended to be, it's funny because when I was growing up in elementary school, I remember distinctly bringing home a grade card that had an A+ in spelling on it. And I was very upset by this because I thought I could get higher. So there was always this next, I could do better. So So I think that's more so a personality thing that I'm still trying to change, because you're right. There's been very much of very validating things that have happened, but sometimes still struggle with it.
I just wonder if growing up you said you're a single parent family, that your father wasn't part of your life, and growing up and constantly having to face maybe even the story of having parents who never graduated from high school. The idea of you being smart enough, knowing that your parents didn't have that document, but clearly you're brilliant. I mean, there's no question about it. And you come from a home where you have brilliant people, because it's not just a big accident. There's a lot of young people who have parents who don't have degrees, but are exceptional and amazing. And, I don't know if that's something you thought about or have processed.
Coming from a family where both my parents, did not get those degrees or diplomas, I didn't really have the model in front of me of people who've done it before, especially like going through, most of high school. I had never seen much of any Black female scientists, and so that was another thing that was, I just never really saw that. So it was like, well, why would I be the first one? But
Well, I'm smiling because what's so cool is that you are a Black female scientist, and you're here, and anybody who sees you could know it's possible, and there's a path, and there are so many, and that's like the gift, and we're blessed to have your presence here, and you being so willing to offer that. So thank you for that, and thank you for being so open, because there are just so many brilliant young people who have so much potential, and I think it's so hard to see that it can all happen, from just getting to know you all so far. And I think Brad being so far out there in rural West Virginia, coming from a home where college wasn't something that anybody knew, and Karina, your story, and Ricky, you being so far out there right now, being in South Korea. You all exemplify, you have a dream, and you get to one stage of that dream, and then you keep dreaming, and it becomes like this game of almost like, how big can I dream and how big can I go? And there's no limit, which is so exciting to see, because you've all started in the place that so many of the people who are watching this are right now. Karina, if someone has a question for you and wants to understand your path, are you cool with people reaching out to you?
Yes.
Yeah, I think all of you. Are you comfortable with people reaching out to you, understanding your path? Yeah, and really, it's not weird, right? If someone reaches out to you, it's kind of cool. That's like that's what's so wonderful. So, just understanding that everybody here is you, like those who are watching this, wherever you are. Like, this is the difference between you and everybody here and me is time. That's pretty much it. Like, that's it. And the time goes fast. Dr. Yost, you've been so patient. I know, as a doctor, you make people wait a long time. So I think I made you wait for payback. Although, Dr. Wade, I came, I don't know if optometrists are faster. I'm really curious. I want to understand your journey, Dr. Yost. I know you're from Athens, right?
Yeah. I went to daycare at Concord when I was a kid. So, I've known Concord my whole life. I currently live 2 blocks from Concord, so I'm still in Athens. So,
yeah. So you love Athens.
Yeah, I guess so. I do love Athens.
Yeah. So, some people, when they're in Athens, and I know, Ricky, you said, you wanted to get away, and of course everyone's journey is their journey, but I'm really curious to understand, Dr. Yost, how did this start? What was your background, and just kind of bring me up to speed on how you got here.
When I was in high school, I had a teacher who, I was undecided on what I wanted to do, and I had to have another science class to graduate high school. And of the ones on the list, biology seemed like it was probably the least terrible out of all of them. I didn't want to do physics. I didn't want to do chemistry. I thought I'll take the biology class. And I loved it, So for me, it was a high school teacher who really sort of changed my path. I loved her biology class. So I took her human anatomy class the next semester. And that's when I was like, you know what? I think that I would like to be a doctor. So Concord was an obvious choice. I mean, they had a great pre-med program, and obviously it was close to home. So I ended up going to Concord. My mom had a very similar conversation with me as Dr. Lane's dad with him. She said, we can't afford this. So, I was able to get some scholarships and things like that. But, and then while I was at Concord, I just kept going and kept applying, went to open houses to medical schools and found one that suited me. And like you said, time marches on, and here I am.
So I want to know, when it comes to that scholarships, when it comes to paying, specifically, can you throw out a few of those, how you made this happen?
Sure. The biggest one for me was the Promise Scholarship that West Virginia has. That was huge. And at the time, I don't think that it pays 100% any longer. I think it's more like 80%. When I was in college, I paid 100% of my tuition and fees, which was incredible. And then, I had a handful of other academic scholarships from high school, and that helped me pay for books. And I was a commuter, living here. So I didn't live on campus, but it helped me pay for gas and food and stuff like that.
The teacher who was so pivotal when you were at Pikeview High School, who is that?
Her name was Ruth Ann Cole. She's retired since, but she's amazing.
That's awesome. I love mentioning, teachers' names and the people who are in your corner who really helped you, because I know that makes all the difference. When you got to Concord and you started taking some of these like organic chemistry classes, right? You took that, right?
Yes, I did.
Right. Those are known to humiliate people. To bring them down to their knees, to make them question themselves. I know, Karina, you had a little bit of imposter syndrome you were mentioning, or a lot, but I mean, when you're in that organic chemistry class, when you're in some of those weed out classes, which are designed to really help students learn how to study and consume information, I would imagine, right? Like those classes, how'd you get through that? Like, was it hard for you? Did you question yourself? Did you get a D? Like, give us the truth.
I mean, the truth is, I mean, there were times I had bad grades, and then I had to spend, work extra hard on the next test to bring my average back up, because, part of getting scholarships is you have to keep those scholarships. So you have to keep your grades up. So to say that I wasn't discouraged along the way many times would be a lie. I mean, this journey is full of a lot of discouragement, a lot of disappointment, a lot of hard work, self-doubt, like Karina mentioned. Concord's a very challenging school. Medical school was even more so. Like Dr. Lane said, conceptually, a lot of the stuff at Concord, like physics, organic chemistry, conceptually is, med school may not be conceptually harder, but it's the insane amount of volume of material that you have to get through in such a short amount of time. And it's overwhelming. There were many times I felt overwhelmed. I think that the way you get through that is, one, just don't stop. It's easy to quit. It's easy to want to quit. I've wanted to quit along the way. And then having a good support network. You got to have folks close to you, friends, family that you can talk to, and vent these frustrations and with your classmates, and because they're feeling the same way. And when you talk about it, it just makes you feel better. When
it came to those grades and questioning yourselves, I like to play this game. Now, I know you practice in town. I don't want people to think that because you got a D. Did you get a D on anything? Did you I
didn't fail any courses or anything, but there were individual assignments, yes, that I did not do well on. I'm sure I've gotten at least a D on, and maybe an F on some assignments along the way. And like I said, that's when you just have to pick yourself up and do better the next go around. I mean, and learn from your mistakes. That's what you have to do. I
love that, because it doesn't matter that you got those. You got help.
Yeah.
How about you, Dr. Lane? Did you get any D's, F's? Did you have some struggles, so we can celebrate the fact that you were there, you faced it?
Genetics. Oh my gosh. Dr. Wise. I'll name it. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Genetics was your bottom.
What's that? I'm sorry.
Bottomed out in genetics. That was the moment.
That was rough. That was the last semester I was there. You just want to get out of there. Woo-wee. That was rough.
I will echo that. Dr. Wise genetics class. Good Lord.
Yeah.
That's all I'll say.
And physics was kind of tough. It was, and being in optometry, you did a lot of physics, a lot of refractive.
And Karina, it was hard for you too?
Genetics, I actually enjoy. But the hardest one, I think, as Dr. Yost alluded to as well, was organic chemistry as well as physics. Because that was the moment that I became very self-doubtful when I took those classes. And I did. In fact, there was one exam in physics that I distinctly remember crying and hyperventilating through the entire class period, and then got a 12 on, and yet I still did well in the class. So
what was your score on that particular exam?
A 12.
It's not like, is that 12 out of like 15?
12%.
12%. I love it. You're in a PhD program at Duke. You got 12% on one of your exams. It's so beautiful. I want to save this. I want everybody to watch this again and again because it's part of it. When you got that 12%, Karina, who did you turn to?
So two of my biggest support people in undergrad and even now were two other professors. So both of them are Dr. Chamberses, Dr. Kim Chambers and Dr. Dave Chambers, their husband and wife. They were very much so just like always encouraging me to keep pushing forward and to keep to keep trying, and to not give up.
Did you want to quit?
Did I ever want to quit? No, I think because I'm a little stubborn, but there were definitely many times where I was very discouraged, where I just didn't think that I would make it. I almost put off going to grad school because I wasn't sure about, my GRE, for example, so there was many times along the way I wanted
right.
to.
And we'll just remind everyone that you applied to 12 grad schools and you got into 9, including some pretty selective institutions, highly selective, as selective as you can get, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're your worst critic. Yeah. Well, it's reassuring to see and to help other people to appreciate, especially those who are in the weeds, who are in that journey. I know, Dr. Lane, you'd mentioned something about the Promise Scholarship. You shared that. What was it that you were going to add to that, just in case there's anybody who has that Promise Scholarship?
Yeah, a couple of years ago, Concord made the decision that my understanding is the Promise Scholarship doesn't cover full tuition normally, but a couple of years ago, Concord made the decision that they would accept that as full tuition and waive the overage. So the students would only need to pay for room and board. I don't know if that's still the case, but as of a couple of years ago, it was something like that.
That's great to know. Ricky, I want to dive deeper into you and your experiences. I don't think we really learned what it was like for you. Just kind of bring us up to speed on how you arrived at this, in Korea.
Growing up, my dad was a coal miner. He was never home, really. And when he was home, our family didn't get along very well. So it was kind of like me coming far away was an escape for me. Growing up, my mom had always told me, you're going to college without any options. So it was like, you're going. It doesn't matter how you do it or how you get there, but you will go to college and you will graduate. She had always wanted to be a registered nurse. That was her dream. And she could never pass the licensing test for it. So when she was very young, she just decided to give up that dream. And she married my dad, and she had me when she was 22. She was a stay-at-home mom for many years. I think I was 16 or 17. My dad actually went to jail. Suddenly my dad's not there, and it's just my mom as a single parent trying to raise us. and we definitely weren't middle class anymore. And we had to kind of like rewire our brains. Like, okay, what's important? What do we need? Not what do we want? And because of that, I wanted to stay close to my mom and my sisters. So I decided to go to a nearby university, and Concord was about an hour away from our home. So it was the best option for me.
When you are in a home and your father's no longer there and he's incarcerated, and I know that there's actually a lot of people who have gone through that. Uh, how do you move forward? Like, how do you find balance in your life? And do you?
Well, I mean, I didn't have a good relationship with my father to begin with. He was a very controlling kind of person. And so, like, when he had left, it was suddenly like, wow, what is this new life? Like, it felt so freeing, actually. And so I think because of that, I felt like I had more control over what I wanted to do in life, and that I could really chase my dreams without somebody looming over top of me. My mom, she began working herself. And although we didn't have a lot of money, she still encouraged me a lot to pursue my dreams.
Was it easy to go to college and get the money to go? Or was it
It
really an easy
was,
path?
I had to apply for a lot of scholarships to be able to go. With my financial situation, I qualified for a lot more scholarships than I think I would have before, when we were like a middle class family. I had to stay on top of things a lot. And actually, last minute, I didn't think I would get all the scholarships I needed to go to school. And I thought I would have to commute, which wasn't ideal because it was an hour drive. But I ended up getting all of the scholarships I needed.
That's great. And when it came to finding your places in community at Concord, were there particular places you found that? I know in high school, Key Club was really important to you. You played
Yes.
tennis. Were you able to find those places at Concord?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And I think the Bonner Scholar program was definitely the most helpful in developing my skills for the real world and for jobs. We volunteered a lot in the community in Athens, in Princeton, everywhere. And we were required to volunteer 10 hours a week, every week. So it was like a job. And in the summers, we had to spend time volunteering, like, I think it was like 240 hours total at, yeah, at our choosing, of course. And we also got scholarship money after that. I just felt like helping people gave me a bigger purpose in life. I kind of didn't want to achieve, like, it helped me figure out what I wanted to do. And that's why I got a degree in social work, actually, because after helping people through the Bonner Scholar program, I found a passion for working with foster care and adoption. And that was really interesting for me. And that's why I got a master's degree in social work as well.
That's wonderful. It's so fun. It's interesting. You sound so good and clear. And I forget that you are so far away. Like, it's a miracle that you're in South Korea. And it's like, it's crazy, right? Like, everything's so close. If there's a student out there who's thinking, I would love to travel abroad. I'd love to experience something other than life here. What advice do you have for that student?
Do it. Don't overthink it too much. And don't give up on that dream if it's what you really want to do. Because I think that moving across the world and trying something different has really changed my perspective on everything in life. Little things like I took for granted in America, going to the grocery store, going to the doctor, doing simple things, so much more difficult here, but also a lot more rewarding.
Yeah.
Because I do something, it's like, oh, okay, I achieved that. I can do it on my own.
Hey, I have another question for you. It's a personal one, but I noticed you told me you were married and you're and your partner, you're working and living together. when did you get married? Did you get married kind of young? Was it like,
Yeah, we got married young. We got married after I finished my bachelor's degree at Concord. And oh man, I was 22, 23, and he's a year younger than me. We've been married almost 3 years now, though. After I finished my master's program, we applied for this job and came over together. Actually, it's not usual in Korea for people to get married, especially like this young. So a lot of people look at us and they're so shocked, so shocked. They're like, how are you married? Because your life isn't even started yet. Careers here usually start like around 30 years old. So the fact that I'm married and have a job and I'm doing it before a lot of people is very shocking.
for anybody who's in a serious relationship and they're in their undergrad and contemplating, next steps? Do you have any advice for them?
You and your partner are always going to have different wants and needs in your life. What you want to do may be different than the person that you're with wants to do. And I mean, I don't think you should always base your dreams off of their dreams. I mean, always follow what your heart is set on. We were lucky enough that we both wanted to do something like this. I think me more so than him, but he decided to go with it. I think that a good partnership is really important, but I think people should remember also to follow your individual dreams and don't give up on those.
Well, you've done that. It worked out well that he wanted to go to Korea too. But I think that's a big thing, and it comes up a lot. So thanks for offering that. I know you have to leave soon, so I want to ask you a question before I get into everybody else's world again. The last question I'm going to ask everybody is this question. I'm going to save it for the rest of the group. So Ricky, if you could go back in time and you could go back to your days at Liberty High School, and you could see freshman Ricky walking around, freshman high school Ricky. A lot happened in high school for you. So if you could talk to you and say, hey, psst, come here, freshman Ricky. I want to tell you something that's going to really help you, the next however many years. What would you tell you based on where you are today?
I would tell myself to be more confident. I think one thing I've lacked in life is having confidence in who I am as a person and my achievements, because I've always looked at other people and to think, oh, they're better than me. They're smarter. They're more talented. I'm in a group with a lot of doctors and people who have passed math classes and science classes that I failed multiple times. So I always struggled with confidence growing up. I just never really thought that I was good enough. But I would like to tell myself, be confident in your abilities and don't look at other people to guide you or to lead you somewhere. Trust in yourself and really know that you can achieve whatever you dream.
Yeah. Well, I think it's remarkable. I think you were just referring to this moment of being surrounded by people. Like even in this moment, you question yourself and your self-worth. Is that what you were just saying?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of intimidating when there's a lot of doctors right here on the panel, and I'm going to go teach some kindergartners and speak in incomplete sentences probably all day.
It's so interesting to hear you say that, because through my eyes, and I don't know if there's anybody else here in the panel who wants to contribute. I mean, right now you're living this wild adventure. I mean, these doctors, they're wonderful and all, but sometimes their life is very predictable, and there's something really exciting about just getting up and going and living life. Because you know what, Ricky, if you want to be a doctor someday, you could be a doctor, right? But you're living it right now. I don't know if anyone has anything to contribute to that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to jump in. when you talk, I'm like, I want to move to South Korea. Like I want, well, maybe not move because I'm probably not that adventurous, but I want to visit. The other thing is, you know what, like Dr. Yost mentioned, for me, it was a teacher or a couple of teachers who really pushed me. So what you're doing is tremendous. And what you're doing is you're educating future doctors or, you know, and or future engineers or whatever, you know, what you're doing is super important. I remember one time, actually, this is horrible, but I said something rude about another kid. And my mom, you know, she said, you know, basically, you have nothing. you only have clothes on your back because of your dad and, you know, my mom and my dad. She said, don't you ever think you're better than anyone else. Mm-hmm. And then she always followed it up with, don't you dare think anyone's better than you. Mm-hmm. And that's what got me through a lot. And I've learned that the world probably needs a little bit more. I mean, we're all from Southern West Virginia here and from a small institution. I feel like the world needs a lot more mamas from Southern West Virginia and a lot more people from small institutions like Concord to help spread that message to a lot of people. And you're doing an awesome job with that. So.
Oh, wow. Thank you. That really means a lot.
I love that. Thank you for offering that. Yeah. And Ricky, I know just from the conversations that I've had with so many students and professionals, and echoing what you were just saying, Dr. Lane, is that when I ask them, who are the people who are in your corner who really helped you, you know, to figure out who you are. And I'll tell you the thing that's mind numbing is how many grade schoolers share the story. You know, you're talking about your dad and mm-hmm. and you know, being removed from the family. And there was mm-hmm. one story where there was a child whose father was deported because he wasn't a legal citizen, and it was very traumatic for them. And it was a third grade teacher who came to their house and said, "Hey, you know, why don't you guys come in the car? I'm going to take you to the store, and you guys get whatever you need." And as an adult, it's that student who remembered that third grade teacher, who validated who she was and made it clear that she was worthy and deserving. And I think that goes so far. So, you know, you're doing wonderful work, and it's a gift. And I'm grateful that you can take some time to share it with us today. So thank you for that.
Thank you for having me here. It's really enlightening and interesting to talk to adults, all adults in English for probably the first time in a very long time.
I would imagine like support, you know, it's like support groups and finding support. That's a tough thing. So thanks, Ricky. I do appreciate that. Karina, I'm really curious. You're in your grad program now, and you know, you're at Duke, you're far away from home, and you're surrounded by a bunch of smarty pants, I would imagine, right? Sometimes. And I don't know how much of a community it is, or if it's isolating. Tell us a little bit about grad school, and is that easy? Is it hard? What surprised you?
Yeah, so I think what was surprising was that I thought that I would basically be like one in like a million people just here wandering around doing my job, and then going to school, going to classes, and then coming back home, being alone. But no, I actually, you know, my incoming cohort, so there was, you know, it was rather small for my program. It was probably like 15 people. We've actually kind of formed this community, and it was very reminiscent, I think, oddly enough, of, you know, my time at Concord. My best friends, some of my best friends at Concord were in that biology department. And you know, because we studied together, we hung out together, we did a lot of things together. And I think even now I have that here, just in a very different setting. I think the other thing that was very surprising was, you know, I thought coming to Duke, there's professors here, you know, that probably have classrooms of, you know, 200 people or so, you know, or more. We have Nobel laureates here, you know, that they're just, they're busy, they're all, all over the place. And I thought that, my professors, for classes, or even like professors within my department, that would kind of just be a face that they would see and then they would forget me. But no, they actually remember my name. They'll stop to talk. And so that's been the most surprising thing, is because I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting them to be like, who are you? Every time, I would, see them or say hi, or, they want to chat,
That's wonderful to hear. It's amazing, high profile individuals, how human they can be and accessible when you're in that place and you're a peer, which is really fascinating and wonderful. So Karina, I know you're a bit of a perfectionist and a first generation student, and asking for help can sometimes be really challenging. I've learned. How comfortable have you been asking for help, and how comfortable are you now?
In undergrad, especially when I struggled with like organic chemistry and physics, and um, and even with that, that took a very strong toll on my mental health. I was too scared to sometimes admit that I didn't know it, And for example, my physics teacher had office hours. She would have office hours late into the night sometimes. And, I went a lot of times, but there were times where I didn't understand some of it. And I would just figure, oh, I'll get it later, And I wish I would have just buckled down and said, no, I need to ask for help and not try to do this on my own. Because even now I'm more open to asking for help when I need it now with like my project or, class or something. But that's because I didn't do that as much in undergrad, because I thought I had it all figured out.
Why do you think it was so scary for you and uncomfortable to ask for help?
I think because I thought that I might be viewed as dumb. That was a big reason, that I might be viewed as less capable, as opposed to people who, just it came naturally to, where they worked harder, and they did better.
And how do you look at asking for help now?
Now, I would say that that's literally the only way to go forward. I mean, if you don't know something, you're either, you don't know something or you don't know how to go about something. You're just going to stay stuck until you get that help.
Yeah, I have a very narrow worldview as a middle age. Who wants to say that? Middle-aged white male. I've said it really fast. And very different life experiences. And I know you mentioned as a child growing up, seeing a Black female scientist was something that you didn't experience a lot and didn't have a lot of interaction with. When it comes to being underrepresented in terms of looking around the community and campus and working through this path, if you're comfortable, I would love to just get a little more insight into that. So if there's someone else who looks in the mirror and says, Karina and I have a lot in common, or someone who comes from a different background, could you just kind of give us some life hacks to get through this and to find support and help to get where you are?
A lot of the, as Ricky mentioned, the confidence issues, that I had, surrounded the fact that I was Black in science and Black, first generation Black student as well. I could not rely on everyone else to validate me. That sounds terrible, but I had to be this force that validated myself almost, especially coming from, a town, a school, that was not predominantly or even half, Black, with Black students. So I realized that, I had a great support system, and that was very key, but a lot of it had to be internal as well. And I think, as I got here at Duke, it's become a little easier, just because I do see, not only Black scientists, but, of Asian descent, of Hispanic descent. And, it's been easier for me to think like, oh, I can do this. For the most part, I think going through undergrad and even going through high school, it was more of telling myself, you have to keep working towards this goal. Because otherwise, I think that would have been to have not kept going. That would have been the real failure to me, for me at least, being a first generation student who was underrepresented. So,
yeah, I would imagine it's really hard to know you're worthy and deserving when you grow up in an environment where people are sending you the opposite message.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and then being able to find that and realize that, and to have it be a self-sustaining sort of an energy. And for someone who's younger who really struggles with that, is it through therapy? Is it through counseling? Is it through, like, what is someone who's 16 who's like, gosh, Karina, I want to be you. I want to understand that, but it's just, I'm not seeing it. I'm not feeling it. I'm getting the opposite message.
Yeah. So I think if it's in, the context too of like, you don't have that support system, or, there's no friends or, professors. Like I said, I had a good support system as well. But if you don't have those friends or those people there to tell you that, therapy works. But also, I think for me as well, I did this summer internship at Duke while I was still an undergrad. That kind of confirmed things for me in the sense of like, I can do this because I saw other people, that were doing it as well. If you don't have that support system, or you don't have, you don't have that internal validation, I think just reaching out beyond your immediate environment and seeing that there are people out there doing it. It just might not be exactly in your immediate circle, but there are people out there doing it. I realized there are many, not by margin of like comparatively, but there are a lot of Black scientists out there. And, I just didn't know that because at the time, I was in high school or even in early undergrad, hadn't like reached out to see those. And so, I would say, I think support system, if you don't have that, I would advise either reading, about other scientists. Like I said, for me, it was the internship where I saw other.
How do you get that internship? Because I'm sure there's a lot of people who would love to have really cool internships in college.
Yeah. So there's actually quite a few summer research internships. I had actually gotten into 2, so I applied to 3. Before my senior year, so my junior year, I applied to WV Embry, which is Marshall WVU, the NIH, and then Duke. It's the SROP program, Summer Research Opportunities Program. Essentially, they look to see if you have a little bit of research experience, but it's not really required because the whole purpose of the program is to give you research experience. So really, just as long as you have a decent GPA and are expressing a willingness to either go to grad school or med school, you can do either. They, as long as you fill out the application, submit it on time, they, some of them you have a higher chance than others. So the NIH I did not get into because it was very competitive, like probably thousands of applicants just through that cycle. But I did get into the one in West Virginia, WV Embry, as well as Duke's.
Well, that's great. So you applied, you got in, and I mean, it changed your life. That internship sounds like it was really pivotal, taking you from Concord and really affirming that there are people who are living your dream and having those heroes. Who do you follow? Are there any scientists you follow? I'm curious to know. Also, I want to talk to Dr. Yost and Dr. Lane about your heroes, but are there any just some people out there that you like follow on Twitter or LinkedIn or websites? Who are those heroes?
There's actually 2 scientists. Chantel Evans, she's actually she's a Black female scientist. She actually just got recruited to Duke, actually, so she's fairly new. And then Gustavo Silva, who's also another Black male scientist at Duke. I have many, many scientists I follow. But yeah, there's quite a few that are out there. Yeah.
That's great. Thanks for sharing all that. I know, Dr. Lane, before we got started, I was going through some of your background information and I was confused because, I know you're an optometrist, but then you have all these other degrees, and that confused me. So what happened? Why do you keep getting these degrees?
But I really like school. So yeah, I started off, by the way, if I could speak to Karina just 1 second.
Oh, please, anytime, please.
I feel like I'm talking or listening to the next Katherine Johnson.
Oh my gosh.
Hidden Figures,
I was thinking, you're special.
Yeah. So she's from West Virginia, or she was from West Virginia, and just kind of, when you were talking, I was like, this is Katherine Johnson. This is modern day Katherine Johnson. So awesome. Go get him. I'm so proud of you. That's good stuff. That's
Thank you so much.
So yeah, I felt like I'm the loser of the group, so.
How could that be? That it's like you're all, gosh, for anybody, it's so funny because it doesn't matter where I know you're joking, but I think there's that little piece of like everybody just looking around and being like, whoa.
Yeah. Like, how am I here? Yeah. So I started off as a psych sociology major because I worked in my church youth group and in Mullins, and the other two participants, I know that they know where Mullins is, and it's a hard hit area with a lot of problems due to drugs, and anyway, it's had some difficulties. And all the kids in my youth group were from a broken home, all of them. 20 kids, some sort of either a dad was in jail, or a mom had been murdered, or just divorce and whatnot. And I felt like I really need to help these kids. And my way with that, to do that, I felt was to go through the psychology program and then go on to get a degree in counseling. Like I said, psych and sociology, because I had awesome professors, Dr. Krell, who's no longer at Concord, but Dr. Griffey, Dr. Klein, both in the psych program now. Dr. Light was in the sociology program at the time. Through that, I learned that I'm not cut out to be a counselor. I can't really separate. I'd lay awake at night worried about these kids, and I wasn't able to turn it off. And I'm like, I can't do this the rest of my life. And so I figured, well, there's other ways to help people. And that's when I started to, really look at other medical fields. So that's when I was talking about, like, I chatted with dentists and chiropractors and family practitioners and optometrists and whatnot. And I remember I was sitting in the gym on graduation day with my psych sociology degree after 4 years. And, they give you this, it's a fake diploma for all the people. Like, whenever you get ready to graduate, it's not real that day. They mail it to you later. I'm like, what's up, man? And I'm like, I can't do this. It was an epiphany. I can't do this. And so we re-enrolled in the pre-med program. And so that's where those 3 undergrad degrees come from. And then
you changed your mind.
I changed my mind, and that's okay. After I came back and I bought into the practice with my business partner, we started to grow, and it was awesome. Like I said, we went from two docs and 3 staff to 5 doctors. And honestly, I can't really remember how many staff we have right now. It's a lot, it seems like. And man, this business thing is it's overwhelming. It can be. And so that's why I went and did the MBA program. So I finished that. I think I finished that in 2016. That sounds right. 2017. I can't remember exactly.
Was that a difficult decision?
No, I think the whole time it's just something that I wanted to do. This, I love business, and I love working with staff and staff development. It's great. It's the highlight of my day a lot of times. So, I was really pumped to do that. And then time went on, and then I'm really involved in our national organization, the American Optometric Association. So I'm a chairperson for our education center. So for the AOA, all continuing education that is sponsored by AOA goes through my committee. and we have our hands in all of that. And so for all continuing education, for all optometrists across the country, and I felt like if I want to take on that role, I needed to really understand instructional design. And so that's why I did the master's in education. And I finished that up in December of 19.
So the learning never stops.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So I'm looking at a PhD program now.
Really?
Yeah, I am sort of. Yeah.
What would that PhD be in?
It would be psychology, but it would be industrial and organizational. So that would fit right in with the business staff development aspect.
So when you are working with the rest of the team, and do they talk to you about life too? I mean, do you help them to not just see, but also, have vision?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Hopefully, we've sat down and developed budgets, household budgets with the staff, and we work on their credit score. All that. Actually, this past 3 months, we've had 5 of our staff members buy new vehicles, and they were so pumped. I was pumped for them because they improved their credit score, and it's not a drain on their finances, their personal finances. And so I don't have kids of my own, but I've kind of adopted their kids, and we work on fractions, multiplying fractions. We do a lot of that after work when they get out of school. So yeah, I really like working with our staff. They're awesome people. So
yeah, and then young people who have a dream of going into your field. And for people who don't know what optometry is, I just don't want to assume everybody knows. Can you help just a young person understand what optometry is?
Sure. I mean, a lot of folks think that they might think that it's just glasses and contacts, right? Fitting your glasses and contacts so you can see better, and that is a huge portion of what we do. That's not necessarily the part of the profession that I like. I like more of dealing with diseases of the eyes. So like things like macular degeneration, glaucoma, where we work to preserve vision more than just a pair of glasses, and we prevent blindness. So, and working with patients who have diabetes, that's a huge, epidemic in the southern part of West Virginia, and it can cause you to go blind. And a lot of folks don't realize that. So I really like to educate our staff, but also educate our patients about that. And that's the reason I wanted to come back to West Virginia from Philadelphia. I love Philadelphia. It was a good time, but these are my people, and I wanted to come back here and help. And I feel like that's the way of doing that.
When it comes to shadowing, if there's someone who says, this is really interesting, I'd like to shadow, but I don't know this guy, he's at a different stage of his life. Like, it's intimidating to be where you are. So how does someone approach someone like you, or anybody who's in a position of power, an influence, which is, whether you want to admit it or not, y'all are. How does someone approach someone like you? And I'd love to ask, Dr. Yost that same question.
Sure. I mean, I go out to campus. I was on campus today, strangely enough, but I go out to campus on a regular basis and speak to a careers class that Dr. Chambers has, Dr. Chambers was referenced earlier, right? Kim Chambers. And they have my telephone number, email. I have 4 students with me this summer. That's why I say I'm not sure how many employees we have, because I have 4 college students this summer. 3 are going to optometry school this fall. 2 are from Concord. I've had numerous Concord students shadow. More than welcome at any time. Come on out. We're out in town, out in Princeton, not far at all. And I'm happy to show them whatever they want to know. I mean, it's good times. I love it, and be happy to show anyone else and talk it over.
Yeah, thanks for being so generous. I mean, you make it very easy to. I can tell you've got a very pure soul, pure energy. It's very clear that you want to help and serve, and I think that's really it's very obvious. So thank you.
Thank you.
For that. Dr. Yost, I know that you said you finished your residency a couple years ago. What is your specialty so people can understand?
I'm family practice. So, I do a little bit of everything. We like to joke that we're jacks of all trades, but masters of none in family medicine. So we get to do a little bit of everything. And I love that. I love, my youngest patient is a week old and my oldest patient is over 100. And I love that I get to experience the entire, my patients through all aspects of their life, and I'm a lot like Dr. Lane in that I had to come back home. I mean, that was always part of the intention. It was never out of the question. So to be back in Athens and taking care of people that have known me since I was a little kid, that can be intimidating. So, you're talking about how people might feel intimidated by people who have professional success. No. It is intimidating to take care of your grade school teachers and your college professors as patients and people that have known you since you were a little kid and know all of your dirty secrets in high school and stuff. That is intimidating, but it's great to be back. And I'm like Dr. Lane, any time a student wants to shadow me, I love to teach. That was, in fact, I was going to stay at my medical school after residency and teach. I had the contract in hand and decided to come back home instead. And I always have med students with me. I've got one with me right now. So teaching is something I love. I'm right beside the college. Literally, my clinic borders the university campus. So, I'm super close and I'm super available.
That's great to know that you're right on campus.
Mm-hmm.
I've talked to lots of students who are dealing with mental health challenges, big struggles, and I think more so than ever before. When it comes to that student who's feeling like they're just not themselves, when they're feeling that darkness, what's your advice to them? And I'm sure you've given it. I'm sure you've had students walk through your door.
Yeah, I have. We take care of students in my office as well. And you're right. Mental health is a huge thing. Karina even alluded to her own mental health in college. I mean, I was miserable in medical school. I wanted to quit. We've all experienced mental health issues, ourselves, or we know someone that's close to us who has. So I think that getting rid of that stigma, being comfortable talking about it, whether you talk about it to a physician or to a friend or a professor, as I said earlier, you just got to have somebody that you can go to.
And when somebody does say, Dr. Yost, I'm feeling this, it's hard to do certain things, or I've had thoughts of self-harm, or just scary stuff to people who are feeling it. What is your response to that? What's the story that someone can tell themselves so that they know that it's okay? And I know it's hard to ask you what a singular response would be, sure. But just how does someone frame that so they know that it's okay to not be okay?
Well, you just said it. It's okay to not be okay. And, obviously the situations, each one's different. As a physician, I have to determine, how serious is this thought? Is this something that requires emergent medical or psychiatric intervention? Obviously, those situations we have to act, immediately. But people who just are really having that self-doubt and they're not feeling like they're worthwhile, and maybe they are having some dark thoughts, the first step is to talk about it, and come to me. We can help get you help, or there's services. I know Concord has services on campus as well. But know that it is okay. I myself have, struggled with self-doubt and stuff and felt like, I wanted to quit. I wanted to quit medical school at one point. I'll admit it to anybody, because I think that in professional schools and even in undergraduate schools, you feel like you need to develop this sort of God complex, like everybody's so smart, I have to be as good as everybody else. But the truth is, everybody else is feeling the same way as you. So reaching out to people, my goodness, that has to be your first step.
Yeah. That's wonderful. Thanks for sharing that and for being there, for all of you being there. We've talked about a lot. Gosh, there's so many great things. I don't want to keep you too much longer, but I just have to just touch on it. So Dr. Yost, you were ready to quit. Like, I mean, you were done. Like, you were packing your bags almost.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just tell me briefly about that and who helped you to stay in there?
It was my second year of medical school, and I was so burnt out and I was just unhappy. I was tired of it. The way medical school is structured, the first 2 years, it's all bookwork and curriculum. The second 2 years, you finally get to do your clinical experience. And that's when it actually becomes fun and it becomes rewarding. And I just wasn't seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. I was miserable. And really, it was my parents. They got me through it, reaching out and talking to them. And my friends who were also in medical school with me. I was part of the Christian Medical and Dental Association, and we had weekly meetings and Bible studies, and having that spiritual connection with people who were like-minded, and to discuss that and to realize that they felt the same way and to support each other. So it was my friends in med school and my parents who got me through it, no doubt about it. And I'm so glad they did. And what's awesome is I had another friend from Concord, an amazing student, and she had gone to a different medical school than me, but she hit the same wall that I did probably about 6 months after me. And I had kind of gotten through my episode, and she had already gone to her dean and said that she was quitting. She had even taken it a step further than me. We met one weekend and talked, and I was like, you can't quit. You can't quit. And I told her that I wanted to quit. And because she reached out to me, I was able to share my experience with her. And now she is a pulmonology fellow on the front lines battling COVID-19. And it gives me goosebumps to think about how awesome she is and how close she was to giving up. And because she reached out to somebody who had had the same experience, look at how many lives she's saving now. We all get to that point at some time where we want to quit or give up. But do not give up. Just don't do it, and reach out to somebody, because there's somebody there who's experienced something similar to you, and they can encourage you and help you get through it.
Yeah. Well, you're all here. You've been here. You are in students' corners, and wow, that's just very powerful and reassuring. So thank you to all of you. I want to ask you one last question. Actually, two last questions. I lied. The question before the last question is there anything else that you wanted to share while we're here, whether it's to a student, to anybody else here? Sometimes when we end this, someone has a thought and they're like, oh, I wish I said that, or I want to clear that up. And I always like to give everybody a chance. And if you don't, that's perfectly fine as well. But I just wanted to offer you that opportunity. So wonderful. Oh, Dr.
I do, of course I do,
I'm happy to hear it. I love when you speak.
Yeah. Well, no, I couldn't let an opportunity pass to not really just raise the Concord banner. Concord University is a small school it's full of passionate people, professors, staff, custodians who want to see you excel. And it was those people who pushed me to realize my dreams and helped me to realize that I'll never truly reach my dreams because they should always be changing and expanding. And when I say custodians and the cooks in the cafeteria, I'm very serious. When you pass a test or it's midterm week or finals week, they're in your corner, building you up, giving you words of encouragement. And the whole campus truly cares about the students. And I can't imagine going anywhere else. Concord changed my life. And I'll always, always be grateful for that.
Yeah, I'll echo that. I mean, obviously, Concord gives people great foundations. I mean, all four of the panelists today, doing awesome things all over the world. And, there's so many great opportunities through Concord and where you can go with the foundation that they provide. And then don't forget, stay involved. I mean, one day you're going to graduate Concord and you're going to go on and do different things, but stay in touch with the campus, stay involved with the school afterwards. I'm on the alumni council, and we always enjoy talking to alums and having them back, and just seeing and hearing the things that they're doing. I mean, it's really cool to see the extended Concord family and what people are up to.
I think that Concord has really prepared so many, including myself, for where we're at now. And I think that, even beyond the education, just the people, the professors, the students, everyone that I met there have had a very impactful presence in my life, and I think that, some people have asked me, students have come up there, they're like, oh, well, do you think that coming from a small school, prepared you to go from somewhere, that's larger? And I think 1000% yes. And I think even more, thinking back to it, if I had to redo the past, 8 years over, I would have still 100% went to Concord for undergrad. 1000%.
I'll go back. I mean, I never left. I mean, I've never went, but it sounds amazing. It's really remarkable. I have my last question. It's my last question. So Karina, I'm just going to keep things going. So Karina, if you can go back in time, if you could see freshman Karina walking through the hallways of Woodrow Wilson High School in Beckley, West Virginia, somehow you walked into the school, they let you in, and you saw freshman you walking down the hall. What would you tell freshman you to help you, given where you are in life today, to help you to move forward?
So I think, aside from the other piece of advice that I would have given myself earlier, I think I would also tell myself to not fret the very minuscule things, and for that, for instance, the 12%, that's a big thing to a degree, but I will say right now, I don't think about that 12% on that exam. It has affected very little of my life right now. And so but at the moment, that seemed like it was the end of my world. Like I was not going to grad school, med school, anything. Like it was done. But in the end, it was fine. And I think I just should have spent less time getting upset and worried about those things.
That's wonderful. Dr. Yost, if you could go back to, I'm going to make this smooth, Pikeview High School, which isn't too far away, right?
No, it's maybe 7 minutes from Concord. it's just next door.
Right. So you'd have to get in your time machine.
Yeah.
And you get to see freshman Mark walking around the hallways. What would you tell you?
Other than tell myself to get a haircut, I would I would tell myself, don't worry, it all works out in the end. It always does. And truly, I mean, it's going to be okay. It's always going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And don't forget to have a little bit of fun along the way.
I just think it always turns out okay. Even when tragedy, trauma, terrible things happen, somehow we find a way for it to be okay. Yeah. And I think that's a miracle, and it's true. It does work out, even if it's painful at times, right?
Yes, even when the bad things are happening and it seems like it's all falling apart, it will, one way or another, it will be okay.
Yeah, thanks. Dr. Lane, if you can go back in time, you get to go back to Herndon, West Virginia, to Mullins High School, and get to see freshman Brad. Freshman Brad, maybe 2 weeks into freshman year of high school. We'll really bring you back.
Yeah, that's been a while, buddy. I'd say probably. Well, one, I would tell myself, listen to your mother. She said, like I mentioned earlier, don't ever think you're better than anyone else. And then I would probably put more emphasis on the second part. Don't ever think anyone's better than you. because so many times I heard the first part, don't think you're better than anyone else. But a lot of times I didn't hear the second part and realized that small town, West Virginia, little old town, you can do big things. Just put your mind to it. And then the other, I think, would be it's okay to be happy. I feel like sometimes myself, the worry, the additional stress I put on myself for really no good reason, like at 12%. Yeah, I mean, it stinks at the time, but it's like, all right, I'm going to get the next one, I would dwell on that. And and then it almost became a habit of just constantly just self-defeating thoughts at times. And it's like, no, it's okay to be happy. And like whenever something great happens, you got a 14 once, but maybe the next time you got an 85 or a 90, celebrate that, be happy with that, and don't continuously concentrate on the negative. And things work out. It works out. It's going to be okay, Brad.
Yeah. Wow. I was moved. I would say, just hearing you say it's okay to be happy. It's easy for me to say it's okay to not be okay. That's easy. But what you said, if it's okay to be happy, that hit me. Because for some reason I feel like it's not always okay to be happy. Like it's okay to not be okay, but to be happy. That's a wonderful gift. So thank you for sharing that, and everybody who's here, and for Ricky as well. Man, I'm so grateful. Thank you. I didn't say anything that made anybody uncomfortable or anything, right? Like I don't have to clear up any. I always like to make sure I'm very honest, and being honest sometimes, you could say the wrong thing, and I don't ever want to do that. I come from a place of love and just gratitude. And I feel very blessed that we can all spend this time together. And for everybody who's participated in this, who's listening to this, reach out to our panelists, reach out to Dr. Lane and to Dr. Yost and to Karina as well, soon to be Dr. Robertson. We know that, and also Ricky as well. All their information is here. Also reach out to me. I'm grateful to be in your corner. And if I can be a resource, if I can help in any way, any of you or the people who are in your circle, please reach out, because all I want to do is to help people to find light, to have their lives overflowing with happiness, and light. It's a wonderful thing when we can all do that together. So on behalf of myself and Concord University and my panelists, I want to thank you all for being here. I'm Harlan Cohn, grateful to be in your corner. And as always, I look forward to continuing the conversation. Thanks, everybody.